A warm welcome to Thriving in Christ on YouTube and podcast. I'm Dr. Ioana Popa from Team for the Soul, and I'm here to bring regeneration and renewal so that you can stay in flow, you can connect with God and Christ every day, every moment of the day, but you can also regenerate and prevent burnout by preparing for giving in the morning, by staying in flow in the middle of the day, separating at the end of the workday, and regenerating with God and with your family if you have family. And many times it is very difficult to stay in flow during the middle of the day. Flow is a state of being when we are aligned, body, mind, heart, and soul. And there is psychological research that when this happens, we are fully in the activity and at the same time connected with our larger self. And sometimes, though, we get so engrossed in the middle of the day that it is hard to stop. So we need to be able to separate a bit from the work in order to regenerate and connect to our soul, make sure we're stretching and we're moving our body, and make sure we're connecting with our emotions and our soul. And it is also, I hear this question all the time, it is also so difficult sometimes to interrupt our workflow, and we want to have ways to reconnect with our selves during the workday, including at the body level. And today I have the pleasure to introduce to you Alessa Caridi. She's a power posture pro, and I love how she calls her is a workday health interrupter. She's a Master-Certified Pilates Instructor and enjoys sharing her knowledge with anyone that will listen, no matter how large or small the audience, from digital meetings to stages at the United Nations to TV news segments. With all the stress and anxiety plaguing our work and day-to-day living situations, Alessa decided it was time to put off her favorite workspace tools and exercises into one place. Her book, The Ultimate Workspace Toolkit, your guide to solving the aches, pains, and productivity problems of your workday. Now, the work from anywhere warriors can create sustainable high productivity with the Jobu Fit way. Alessa has a passion for perfecting her healthy self and passing along her knowledge to anyone that would listen. Alessa is a UCLA graduate and certified Pilates instructor, educator, and author. She has taught Pilates and dance professionally on 3 continents and owned her own Pilates studios in 2 countries. And during her 3 years as a Pilates studio owner in Okinawa, Japan, she experienced firsthand what makes Okinawans some of the healthiest, longest living people on the planet, and how this culture cares for and emphasizes the physical health of its people. Alessa knew their practices combined with her anatomy-based knowledge needed to be translated for the rest of the world. And this is where Jobu Fit, the workplace movement company, was born. And if you're a regular, I want to welcome you back. And if you don't know me, as mentioned before, I'm Dr. Ioana Popa from Soul, and I want to welcome you to Thriving in Christ show on YouTube and podcast, where I bring tips for you to regenerate on the grow and grow towards your highest potential and thriving in Christ, so you can have the high level impact at your work, with your family, at church, in your neighborhood, and balance and align your body, mind, heart, and soul as you lead and serve, and simplify your empowering daily habits from inside out so that you can perform at your best every day and tap into your God-given confidence, presence, and vision to thrive for the kingdom, so that you can inspire others to do the same and lead with peace, joy, and that peace that surpasses all understanding, with tips from science, psychology, spiritual care, and Christian faith. And if you're ready to grow towards the kingdom with high-level holistical habits, let's dive in. A warm welcome, Alessa. I'm so excited to have you today. And I know a little bit about work. I know you and I talked before, and I'm just so delighted to share with the audience of Christian women, professional and servant leaders. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to embark on this next hour or so with you.
Yes, yes. So I love to start with the journey in Christ, because I think it's just a foundational for us as women in picking our profession, our vocation. So what was it like for you? Did you always know you love Christ? How did you came around to know him? And picking your vocation? I know there's three questions, not just one, but
Yeah. So I was raised Christian from the time I was a little girl. It's always been part of my everyday. There was never really any question for me. I had a lot of formation growing up. I went to parochial schools. In fact, the first non-parochial school was when I went to university. So I had it really all the way up. And being the oldest of five, we always talked about your works and using your works to glorify God and everything that, so it wasn't something that we kind of stepped into in Sundays and then everything else throughout the week was just, being yourself. It was really, it really was everything that you could do. And so from washing the dishes or folding your laundry, doing your homework, and this is so funny. I can't believe I'm bringing this up, but my mom, anytime we would get frustrated, she'd always tell us to offer it up. And it was one of those like frustrating points as a child because I was like, no, I'm really angry about this. Like, I don't want to do this. But it was really something that I never really understood when I was a child, but it was so ingrained in me from that young age that everything you do. So it was always part of my formation. And I will admit that until I made it to college, actually opening the Bible and reading the Bible with any kind of consistency wasn't a priority. Even though I was in parochial schooling in high school, we would read here and there, but it was a lot about because I went to an all-girls school too. So it was a lot about your identity as a Christian woman and how you can project that into the world. So it wasn't until I became like a true adult. And even then after college and when I got married in the church and we moved abroad together, that was really when I started to dive in, and my new friend circle was really from my church, because that was your point when you land in a new place, where can I go? So that's kind of where the way that my faith has always kind of paralleled my projection as a professional woman.
oh, so beautiful. It was like, this is what we do. We,
Yeah.
my God, we have positive events, even frustrations, we give it to God, we lift them up. And so it always became, that was your journey. And it sounds like was it like, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of really embodied it and identified it from the beginning?
Yeah.
Or what,
Yeah, it wasn't.
or did you get like an aha moment at some?
um I never, because I was always in a parochial school, I never had a real kind of opposition when I was younger, because everybody around me, I would say 90% of the people, kids, parents, people I interacted with, were like some form of Christian denomination. And it was always just something that you did. And in my schooling, I always had more of a theological background. I had a lot of friends that I'm the oldest of five, and a lot of friends came from 7, 8, 9 kids. And so it would all be like, it really, there was no, I didn't have that kind of like, I need to prove anything. And then by the time I went to university, and I went to UCLA, so I went to a very liberal arts school. And when I got there, it's interesting because I was studying liberal arts and because I was a dance major in undergrad, the amount of just more classically conservative people that I was around, there was definitely a high percentage of liberal thinkers because it liberal arts school, but a lot of kids that are in the school for an art program, right, just by default, come from families that are doctors, lawyers, these very high thinking professions from parents. So because they have that kind of background, and that tends to lead to a little bit more of a conservative thinker in general. So even when I got to college, when I was surrounding myself with people that were artists, we didn't agree. Most of the time we didn't agree completely, but I never had that, what you're seeing in the news now, where people are just screaming at each other, and a lot of the turmoil that you see on like a university level. So, I mean, I would have to say that everyone has ebbs and flows when it comes to their faith and the way that they practice their faith.
Um,
but I didn't ever really go through a period of serious questioning, just because it was always part of my life. And anytime that I offered something up, or I gave it to God, gave it to Christ, gave it to something that was bigger than me, it happened. When I asked for help, I was helped. And so I never had a reason to really say, I don't think this is right. So
Oh, that's just so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And you were starting to share a bit about your vocation. You studied dance. Say a bit more.
yeah.
I know you did dance and Pilates, and you have a methodology, a framework to help people with their bodies at work. So share a bit about that, please.
Yeah, so dance was always part of my life. I dance, I sing, and I act, like in that order. And I've been dancing since I was 2. I grew up in a family of kind of this dichotomy. They were either doctors or they were performers. And so when I was growing up, my father was in med school, and my mom used to photocopy the pages of his Grey's Anatomy textbook, because I always want to color with him, because I wanted to do work with daddy, because he was never around, right? He was always at school and is studying long hours. And so she used to photocopy them so that I wouldn't destroy the hundreds of dollars worth of books, that those things costed a lot of money back then. I'm sure they still do. I don't know what they are now. And so I would color this stuff. And I grew up in a household where it wasn't just like, this wasn't your collarbone, it was your clavicle, your leg bone was your femur, and that's always
All the names of, and
yes.
that's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
And so like when I would be like, oh, this hurts, and I'd be like, Dad, my leg hurts. And he's like, okay, is it interior? Is it anterior? Is it your insertion point? And so things that kids didn't really get. And he would never just say like, oh, okay, your leg hurts. Okay. He'd ask more of those questions. So I grew up thinking like, that's normal, like that's kind of the way things were. And I grew up in a very competitive dance world. We danced all over the US in the company that I was part of. We competed. I was too young for this, but my company was invited to dance at the Olympics in Atlanta. So for the opening ceremony there, but I was still on the young side. So we were very high level. We danced at Lincoln Center, on Broadway, at Disney World a bunch. We were just kind of all over the place, all over the country. So by the time I was in high school with this company, I was dancing like 25 hours plus a week. And that was on top of going to school, and just other little things that I did. I play 3 instruments. It's art has always been a part of my life. My grandmother was a concert pianist, so it's been instilled in me from a young age.
Oh,
And then I knew I against all of my parents trying to show me otherwise, I knew I wanted to study dance at university. They were like, oh, that's nice, but how about fashion, or how about this science thing? You love anatomy. And I was like, no, this is what I'm going to do. And so I just felt very called to do that. And I auditioned all over the place. And like I was talking about before,
yeah.
and in my faith journey, whenever I was asking for something or I needed help, very oddly enough, when I was going to auditions, and I went to an NYU dance audition, and the teacher arrived 30 minutes late and cut all of the classes short for the audition. And I was like, I don't think I want to go here if the teacher can't like respect us in that way. And so like that was shown to me, like, this isn't where I was supposed to be. And then I really wanted to go to Boston Conservatory. In my mind, I had it in my mind that I was going to go to Boston Conservatory. They had auditions in New York, for Boston Conservatory. And the day of the audition, I had 104-degree fever. And I went to the audition with like a giant tea, like a giant cup of tea to like keep my throat moving. And I had it at the bar next to me while we were doing warm-ups, and I made it through bar like perfectly. But when you go to center floor, you can't take the tea with you. So it had to stay
Oh
at my
my God.
bar. And that's when my body just crashed. Like I couldn't move. My throat was closing up. I just remember I left there. We finished the audition. I left there. My mom took me to the doctor, and I had 104-degree fever. And so it was very obvious that that's not where I was supposed to be. And then I flew out to Los Angeles, and I auditioned for, unbeknownst to me, I auditioned for the head of my department, which was called the World Arts and Cultures Department. That's what the dance department was under at UCLA. And she was the head of the department. She opened up all of my rankings from my academic rankings from school and everything else. And she was looking at it and she's asking me questions. And I was like, sure. Like, cause I wasn't like looking at it. I was like, yeah, that sounds right. Okay. And I finished my audition with her. There was a whole day, and I remember this like it was yesterday. She closed it and she goes, welcome to UCLA. And I walked out of there and I was just like, oh, okay. And I walked out of there, and my mom was like talking with other moms that are in the hallway. And I was like, this is where I'm going to school. And she's like, shh. And I'm like, no, no, no. They told me I'm going to school here. And I was just like, oh, okay.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, Melissa, I love a lot what you're saying. I love that connection with God. That has been my experience when you really trust God, and it's a decision I mean,
Yeah.
you're already embedded in Christian life. I wasn't. I grew up in a communist Romania. So although I
Wow.
was baptized early, there's no connection until later in life when I had this moment with God, and it just felt like, oh my goodness, like my mind, my soul exploded, so to speak, and opened to this unending love. It was just so beautiful that I have the same kind of experience. I ask God, if it is for me, make it happen. If it's not, close the
Mhm.
door. I actually went to some interviews one time for it was a Mesh General, was a program on some type of therapy, and I was praying. I said, God, block me. You know, I got into a small car accident. I'm like, okay, God, thank you.
Wow.
All I needed to know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
things like that when we actually pray ahead. So if you're listening as a listener, I encourage you to really ponder on this, that there's something about this dance, this cosmic dance with God, that
Yeah.
really when we trust and we put the faith right at the beginning, you'll get the signs when it's happening.
Yeah.
Oh, I just love what you're saying. So all of a sudden, UCLA,
Uh,
come.
yeah. And I mean, even when I got the acceptance, my parents were like, no, no, like because UCLA is the number one applied to school in the world,
Mhm.
because everybody sees it on movies. Everybody wants to go there. And in my year, within the World Arts and Cultures bracket, there are 30 students accepted, and only 15 are for dance.
Wow.
And so that to me, my parents were like, oh, okay, that's nice. Like they're like, well, because even at Boston Conservatory, they accept like 50 or 100 dancers, so it's better numbers there.
Mhm.
But I remember, because it was the first thing, it was email back then. Like, whoa, you got an acceptance through email. And it came in, and my dad's like, no. And he like had to get up and like walked to my room to see the computer to like make sure that he was reading it. Like, because I was freaking out. I was so excited. But yeah, I've always had these kind of, like if I wasn't sure about something and it would take 30 seconds, and within a week or a month the answer was there. It was always, that's the way it's always been. When I opened up my Pilates studio in Japan, and I know I'm jumping ahead a bit too, I just didn't know if it was going to take off, because I was in another country and I was trying to figure things out, and I was like, you know what, fill up my schedule. And that was really just, that was my prayer. And within 2 months, I was teaching 30 hours a week, and I had a full studio, and I had wait lists. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, again, it's not a, like it's hard, because I don't want to sound like selfish, like I'm using this like special power or something. I'm not.
Absolutely.
But it works. It really, you offer it up, and it's in any aspect of your life, and it really works.
Yeah, I really love what you said. I think it builds confidence. There's an inner knowing, an inner confidence that God supports us and will guide us when we can
Yeah,
comfort and say, hey, God. And sometimes, many women sometimes they have clear direction. They might hear something, the soft voice, or they might have a body sensation, like almost like intuition, a wisdom kind of call deep down. But sometimes we don't. And sometimes we're like, well, maybe God is trusting us to move
mm,
forward. If He does, He's going to stop us. So trusting that process. I love what you said. And tell me, I mean, part of what you're doing that's so cool is that as you've integrated, right, the culture in Japan and their work ethics and their ways of breaking up the day and regenerating on a body level. I'm sure it's more than just the body, but with your love for dancing and Pilates, tell us some nuggets to really regenerate and connect it to what you're doing now, because you're now in a different.
sure.
I would love for you to share.
Yeah. So when I was in Japan, I had a studio that I was there, and I was training Marine sailor soldiers, DoD professional stay-at-home moms. I had I had two local Japanese women that I had anatomy books. One was in Japanese and same anatomy book in English and Japanese, and kind of point to things because a lot of what you do in Pilates is, you just kind of look around and follow, so you can get that kind of pace to it. Um, but I saw through my training of all these different kinds of bodies, whether they were like working out hard and, with those rucksacks and going on long hikes or sitting at a computer. Everybody had the same kinds of problems. By 3 p.m., they were exhausted. Their hips, their back, their shoulders, and their necks hurt. They felt like at the end of their workday, they didn't want to go out for dinner. They didn't want to socialize. They didn't want to do the things that make us human. And so in kind of processing all of this and being like, wow, I can't believe no one's come up with any kind of solution. No one's even like kind of tried to play around with these things. I was like, there's something has to be done. And my dog that we had in Japan, I remember walking my dog every morning on the seawall, and just like we have street lamps, like in the States, like wherever you are, they have street lamps with speakers on them. And so when I was walking my dog every morning, I started hearing music, and at the same time, the same music, and it played for it was like 8 minutes or so, maybe a little longer, maybe a little bit shorter. And it didn't matter where I was. If I was walking past a school, all the students outside would line up and they would do this like stretch and awakening routine. But then also the amazing thing is if I was walking on the seawall that morning at that time, the other little lady that was walking her dog and the construction workers that were physically building the seawall at that time, they'd all stop, they'd all line up, and they'd all do the exact same movements. And so at that point, yeah, it's in their culture to start their day this way. And if you look it up, I started doing a little bit more research on it, and that's when I started learning that in Tokyo, on top of these huge high rises, people would go up to the roof and do them. They would do, it didn't matter what your age was, what you did for a living, if you were a student, if you were a retiree, it didn't matter. You did this workout routine that was the same every day. And I was like, wow, I wonder like why, how it got started, all of these things. And in doing my research, one of the reasons that they do it is because they want to focus on their body and aligning their body before they do anything else for the day. And I was like, this has to come back to the States. This has to be translated for people in America, for people who sit and on their computers like this all day long. And then I started in all the different kinds of bodies that I was training. I started realizing that it was great to train these people, right? I really loved seeing the progress they were making, reducing their pains, making them stronger and longer and more flexible, and all the things to help you stay mobile and healthy as you age. But really, they needed the support beyond that. So like when they weren't on my machines or in my studio classes, like what were they doing? And one of the big things that I've been talking about this year, really I'm making a push this year for it, is we have to start thinking about our physical health the way that we do about dieting, because we don't eat 1 or 2 meals a week and say we have a healthy diet.
Right.
So why should we do 1 or 2 exercise classes a week and say we have a healthy lifestyle?
I
And
just,
that's where
mhm.
that's where we have to start really focusing on ourselves, because the brain body connection is real, and we need to start supporting the body the way that we eat a healthy diet, we get enough sleep, we brush our teeth, all of the things that we do to provide for us, but we don't move enough. And
That's
if you
right.
don't use it, you're going to lose it. So I hope that answered a little bit of your questions there.
Absolutely. And I think we're so in synchronicity because that's my observation as well. Being in 3 decades plus in psychological field and mental health field and spirituality, I've also noticed that the same way we need to do it on an emotional level, the same way we need to do on the spiritual level. And sometimes people do pray a few times a day, but many times they do it like a rote prayer versus deeply connecting with joy. And it's the same principle. Like, yes, we don't think twice about eating and sleeping. And so sometimes people are just trying to
Yeah.
bypass that. But is this
Yeah.
body? I agree because we're psychosomatic beings and everything that happens at the body. That's people when they ask me, they say through the body is the fastest way that we can access different states of being, different resourceful states, different even can impact our thinking, our also emotions through the breath. So
Yeah.
what have you discovered and what's working now? And maybe you can give some tips if you're listening and you have to work throughout the day on a computer. Well, you might want to listen to this.
So the first thing that I say, because I love breath work and I love meditation, and those are two things. I start my morning with meditation every morning. I think for a very long time, especially I would say like more in like the early 2000s into the teens kind of thing, there's a huge focus on how meditation can center you, and that's the only thing that you need. And again, that kind of let the body kind of fall to the wayside. And so I think what the best way that I can describe this is there's no amount of meditation. You can never meditate the pain away. And when we are dealing with stress, especially in your workday, the majority of it comes from an external force, right? That email that we get from a boss, the
Right.
unexpected phone call, the deadline that gets pushed up. And so it's the way that we the way that we react to things that really keeps us in this loop.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what I tell people is when you're in this kind of this, I call it the downward stress spiral. I'm sure that you have a way to kind of describe it as well. But so I describe stress as starting in two ways, and it's either mental, right? That phone call that happens, or it's physical, where we're sitting there and we're typing away like this, and then our shoulders start to hurt and our back starts to hurt. And so it's physical. And now if it's mental, what happens? We get that call, we hang up the call. Oh my God, I got to get this done. I have to get it done by 5 o'clock. And so what do? We get hunched over, we get closer to our technology. And then the second stage of the spiral happens where I'm going to get this email done so I can get the next stage done. And then the next starts to hurt. And then you start to sit there and you're like, if I push through, I'm going to get, and then it goes back to the mental state.
Exactly.
And so then it kind of spirals down. And if you don't have the tools to step back and say, enough, I
Right.
need to fix this, it's just going to make your day worse. And a lot of times people tell me, well, once Wednesday hits, I know I can push through to just make it to Friday so that I can decompress, I can de-stress, I can fight the burnout, I can relax. But then what that ends up doing is then you're over the weekend and all you're doing is you're thinking about like, oh my goodness, Monday is coming and I
Absolutely.
don't want to go there.
Right. I just want to pause here because that's exactly what I've noticed. And that's why it's
Yeah.
so important. Like my saying is don't wait for the weekend, don't wait for vacation or their retreat. Because
Mhm.
what we do, even psychologically, we push it in the future. And you're saying not only we're pushing it, but we're also accumulating the stress in the body. Yeah. So please.
Yes. Yeah. And so the way to, once you acknowledge that, so a physical manifestation of stress for people is that the pen twirl, the knee bounce, the chew, the like rubbing your eyes or your shoulders for really like not really knowing why, like even though you got eight hours of sleep, like rubbing your eyes and sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, like, why am I tired right now? These are all physical manifestations of stress. And holding on to the tension in our head or neck, which is the main place that professionals you tend to hold their stress, especially if they're seated at a workstation. So when you start to realize, you start to notice these things and you can say, oh, this is what's happening to me right now, instead of pushing through. That's when you need to take a step back. And that's when I like to stretch to de-stress, add some movement to energize. And it doesn't have to be big. Just do a quick posture check, because our posture affects obviously keeping pain out of our bodies, but also affects the amount of oxygen that you get to your brain and to all of your organs, and making all of the blood move throughout your body, which then it can actually signal to your brain that you're going to sleep instead of actually working. And that's one of the reasons why you're tired. So there's a million things that you can do that don't require you to go for a 30-minute run or get really sweaty, but things that you can do right where you're sitting. So if you're watching this, like right now, I'm marching in place. And you can't tell that I'm marching in place because nothing is moving. So even if you're on a call that's going long and you start to feel yourself getting tired, march in place. You
So
can also like
teach us a couple of tricks. So how do we mark
okay.
this?
So one of the easiest ways to do this, and obviously for it depends on how what your level of fitness is. You can tailor this for your body. if you can, without it being too obvious, I would say push yourself away from your desk so that you can put your hands out in front of you. And then that way that will actually keep your body upright. And by pushing down onto your desk, it'll keep your torso quiet. And then that way the press down will press your shoulders away from your ears, engage your triceps. So that's also a nice little workout that you engage those muscles in the back side of your arms, which
Yeah, yeah.
yes, which don't right. And
You are at the desk, so you're sitting nice and tall, and then
yeah,
you're pushing your arms, and so you're engaging already. You definitely, as you push down, you're relaxing your
yes.
and your shoulder,
And
but you also engage
yes.
your arms. So here you go. You do some
And
muscular.
then just march. Yes. And all you have to do is just lift your knees and march. And that the thing that you can focus on here now, this is something that you
Doing
can add in.
that.
There,
Can
yeah, and you can't tell. It's great. It's such a great thing to do. And you can speed it up. You can add little toe taps if you want to keep your feet off of the ground once you start to speed it up. And then the next thing that you can do is you can actually turn this into an ab workout by imagining right where your belly button is. You suck your belly button in. Now remember, your belly button is down here. Your lungs are all the way up here. They're nowhere near each other. So don't, right? We're not holding on to the air. We're going to breathe and we're going to pull that belly button in. So you're controlling. And if you can take it once beyond that, you can add the Kegel and then focus on the area of your belly, right where you zip your jeans. And right there, your transverse abdominis, actually, it's your muscles, the inner muscles there. You can pull that in. Now, if that is something, obviously we're layering the expertise level there.
That's right. So we're going to slow it down for a second. So if
Yeah.
you're listening, you got the big part, the first part, right? You hold
Yes.
on the desk. And the second part is to really hold your belly button. And
Yep. Pull the belly button in.
are you still pushing your arms and your legs or no?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
are.
the arm muscles, think of that as your stability. So that's kind of
Yes.
what I like to call, it's the brace for your incognito fitness. So nobody knows that you're getting fitness added to your workday, but you're getting it in by just simply pressing your hands down. And if you can't push your arms out in front of you, but you can put them out wide, as long as you focus on pushing your palms into your desk and keeping your shoulders down and away, you're
Yeah.
working out and you're getting a total body.
And they should be straight or just hold your elbows
Press down.
table.
Yeah, wherever you're comfortable. The goal is to make sure you keep the tension out of the head and the neck. And so if you can't reach all the way forward, you can only put them down. As long as you press your shoulder blades away from your ears, right down your spine, press the shoulders down, and then you keep your hands solid and still so that way it quiets your torso. You can move your legs and you can do so much just by having that added stability of the hands on the desk. And then if you want to take it up even higher, you can put the hands down, press down to the chair so that you're pushing your arms down and your spine goes nice and long. And then that way, that's a little bit harder because it allows your body to bounce, and you don't want that to happen. You want to hold your core still. And then the next level is to just move your hands around while you're talking, because I'm marching while I'm talking to you right now and you can't see that, but that's because I've got my belly pulled in, I'm pulling in all those things. And
So
yeah.
you get
And
the
so
posture in place. There's that stability. I know in ballet, right? They say to get your rectangle, right? Get it all. And you're pulling your belly button, right? To get that.
yes. So
And
one of the things that But one of the things that I really teach is I do not teach belly breathing. So I find that it's very important as a professional, even as a body that's maneuvering through your day, that you are in control of your core. Because coming from dance and Pilates, they call it your powerhouse for a reason. And if you attempt to belly breathe, what ends up happening, I would say 90% of the time, is people force their bellies forward while they're inhaling, because the only real people that really can belly breathe that I have witnessed and I have come across have been opera singers.
Mm,
And that to me,
yeah.
and I'm sure you understand the anatomical reasons here, but again, your lungs are up here. Your belly is, where your stomach is, where your belly button is, and those are two very different places. And one of the things in between those is your diaphragm. And because that runs, parallel with the floor, so like perpendicular of where your lungs are, that's the blockage. And that's, the reason you hiccup when your lungs and your diaphragm aren't working together. And so with that, an average person, it takes skill. It's an actual skill to be able to let that release so that you can inflate your lungs to the point where they're going down far enough to push your stomach forward. So
Right.
those are
Exactly. And if
it.
you are,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. No, I agree with you. It takes training. And I have a program, Wake Up to Your Soul, where I have daily, a Bible verse, a little bit from science, and this, also do contemplative practice and a journaling prompt. And with that, with a contemplative practice, there is a bit of practice. So if you're listening,
Yeah.
interested, yes, there is a way, but it does take practice to quiet it down and to relax that diaphragm. And I really appreciate that. Wow, there's so many layers, and I know you have a book.
Yeah.
We'll put the
Yes.
we'll put the link in
I
the.
have it here.
Oh, very good.
I always have it with me. It's always on my workspace. It's something that I always use because it's something that you can reference so easy and it's so small. You can take it with you anywhere. It's not heavy, but it's jam-packed with stuff
And if
in
you're
there.
listening on a podcast, this is the ultimate workspace toolkit. We'll put that link in the chat, and also your website,
Awesome.
the links you want to share with us. So I know we could talk for another 5 hours. I am convinced
Yeah.
that I'm having so much fun. I'm curious if there's another nugget or anything else that you want to share about what you're doing before we wrap up.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing here and a really big takeaway, well, I guess maybe I'll give you two takeaways if that's okay.
Yeah.
I really want people anytime I give a talk, I always say if there's one thing that you take away from this conversation with me, it's to focus on your feet. Because all too often, when that mindless stress becomes physical, the knee starts to bounce. And for the knee to bounce, the foot has to be underneath the chair. So it's like kind of backwards underneath you, and that has implications with your hips, your hamstrings, all of those things. So really just focusing on your feet and putting both feet down on the ground. But that doesn't mean that I want to turn you into a statue in the opposite direction where you're like perfectly upright and not moving, right? So I understand that you're human, but just when you have like a little twinge of pain in your shoulder or your back, or you start to feel like you're getting tired because you're kind of hunched forward in front of everything, just focus on your feet. Take 2 seconds to put both feet on the ground, take your eyes and look down. And so then that way you can check, make sure the whole foot is pressed to the floor and that all 10 toes are pointed forward, because that is going to stack your body, physically stack your body from the bottom up. That will align everything so you can be really centered. And it's going to, with both of your feet on the ground and your weight evenly placed, it's going to be hard for you to kind of like hunch over to one side, because the second I do that, my left hip is coming up off of my chair and I'm no longer aligned. So if I have both of my feet down and my weight is evenly distributed, that way I'm going to stay balanced. And it's like one of those dolls that were like on the ropes, and at the bottom you'd press a button and it would like fall over. But
Yes.
the second that,
Yeah.
yeah, really old toy, old toy. But then you'd let go of it and the tension was back in its feet and it kind of stood up straight. That's the idea. So that's the one takeaway. And the other takeaway is I know I was kind of negative when I said like the stress always comes from the outside and there's not really much that you can do. I don't like when people are like, oh, I guess if stress is just there's nothing I can do about it. So what I really would, to be a little bit more positive and to end on more positive note, I created a framework, which is also described in the book. And there's a whole schedule, a way to schedule your workday in this book and what to do in the framework. I call it the 50-10 ratio. So for every 50 minutes, 50, that you spend completely focused at your work, whatever sitting desk, standing desk, it works for both. I have setups for both in the book. Whatever you decide to do for that 50 minutes of focused time, spend 10 minutes someplace else, whether it's acknowledging your surroundings, looking at things that are in real life, going up and down a flight of stairs, 4 times, great workout for your bum, because there's something, I don't know if you've ever heard sleeping butt syndrome. That was a big thing too, that people were talking about, how, hips and back problems. You can do simple, just push your chair away, tuck your chin to your chest and roll all the way down so that your chest is on your thighs, and you push your hands to the floor, and then you just let gravity take over and you stretch out your back, you release the tension in your shoulders, your neck and your arms, and you do that 2-3 times for 30 seconds each. That's 5 minutes. You go refill your glass of water, you come back down, you come back to your workspace, and you can set yourself back up for those 50 minutes. And it's really, instead of saying, okay, I'm stressed. What can I do now? You can get it so that your brain and your body start craving that movement every 50 minutes. And the hope is that you now have the tools to say, okay, this is what I'm stressed about. I have a pain here. So I know Alessa says you can do this stretch with this mechanism. Or if I drink more water, I'm staying hydrated. And that's really what it is. Staying within the 50-10 ratio will help you stay ahead of stress and cope when something happens and you need a little extra boost.
I love it. So if you're listening to this, right, 50 and you're multitasking, come back. 50 minutes of work if you're at a desk and then 10 minutes. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate what you said about stress as well. I think in our English language, we're using stress in two ways. In the psychology, it describes stress as an outside stressor, like you shared. Maybe it's the email, maybe it's a text, maybe it's whatever's happening, but also stress is an internal reaction. And
Mhm.
it is true that there are people, you take 10 people and they respond to stress, the same event, they will respond to stress differently, which means that there is an internal component, that reaction to the reaction that's so important. So I love what you said as you combine them through the body, that no matter where the stress is coming, it could be your reaction in your mind, or it could be something, I don't know, someone might be starting yelling all of a sudden, not a very likable situation, but the way we
Sure.
respond is so important. And I really appreciate
Yes.
you sharing everything about the posture and those ways that even if you're stuck at the desk because you're listening, you're not really stuck. There's ways to do to strengthen your core, to move your feet, and also to, yeah, and just regenerate. So thank you
Yeah.
so much, Elisa, for
Yeah.
and do you have a Bible verse to wrap up? Something
Oh,
that inspires?
sure. So before we go there, if you're looking for things to do within your 10-minute segments, like the little 10-minute breaks, that I put all over social media. So anywhere that you want to find me, Alessa.Caridi, that's where I am. You can also find me on jobuffett.com and that'll lead me to there too. But that is another way. If this is, getting the book isn't quite for you yet, connect with me there. And then you can fit those 10 minute, I post them two, 3 times a week there. And that to help you move around. Now, moving on to the Bible verse. I know we kind of spoke about this a little bit before we hopped on here, but for me, Bible verses I find something that in this kind of season is whatever season of life, season, the calendar year kind of resonates with me. And Mark 9, I think it's 23, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief, has been something that I have been just meditating on. And I think that it's been resonating with me just because of the our relationships ebb and flow, our focus kind of has high points and low points, and it's never that there's no belief, but some days, some moments, you just need that like extra reminder. And I think that comes in work, that comes in family, that comes in any aspect of your life. And it's just been a really great, whatever, I'm washing my hands and I'm saying that to myself over and over again. And it's just been something that I've been focusing on in this Lenten season.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I think it's just so true that no matter what, we believe it's a decision, but God
Yeah,
is to meet us and help us. So thank you for that. I'm trying to see if I can we'll put the link, the exact quote in the
sure.
caption as well. But
Yeah.
oh, thank you. How about if
Yeah.
wrap up with a prayer? You
Uh,
start and then I'll follow.
Dear God, this has been an amazing conversation. It's been wonderful to put you at the center of both the professional and the spiritual in this way, that we've had a great conversation that has intersected and really just delved deep into finding different ways to add you even further into our lives. I just continue to focus and to bring Christ-centered into every aspect of our life, whether it is our physical health, our mental health, our professional life, our family life, and to just keep helping our unbelief and keep providing in the ways that you always have.
Thank you, God, for today's conversation. And thank you so much for Alessa. May you bless her abundantly and her family and everyone she touches through her work, through her book, and all her wisdom that she's sharing. And may you continue to let this word and teachings be known into the world to help people, to give them hope that although we are working in offices and or at home on a computer at all many times, that there is a way that we can reconnect with our bodies, that we can reconnect with you, God. And may you help the listener as well. We lift her up with her family and her vocation in her profession, at her church and neighborhood and all the communities she is leading and serving and supporting others. May you bring the hope of this balance, body, mind, heart, and soul, and really pick up the different beautiful nuggets that Alessa shared with us today. So then together, collectively, we can continue to thrive in you, Christ, and give you glory and grow from glory to glory and bring your light into the world. Amen.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It was so lovely. And
Yes, thank you for having me.
yes, I hope we'll continue the conversation.
Definitely.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alessa. It was such a joy to have you on today's show. I really appreciate your tips and all your life work and just the way you support people to really de-stress and stay connected with their body through the exercises. And as a listener, I want to thank you so much for being here, being at the end. You know, I don't take your attention for granted. May you be blessed and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the week and weekend. And I will see you next week. Take care.